Hello? Yeah. I'm calling because there's somebody outside my house. I don't know what they are or what they want, but they have just black eyes, and they just keep staring into my peephole. They keep knocking on the door and asking to come in. Please hurry.
Have you heard of the elusive black-eyed children? Well, these people have, and sent in their allegedly true stories with these beings. As always, it is up to you to determine whether you believe in these stories or not. If you have a story you would like to share in a future video, be sure to submit it at swampdweller.net or the email you can find in the description down below. Today joining me, I have some friends. They are some up-and-coming YouTubers in the community, and I think you'll enjoy them. If you enjoyed Dizombified and ZachBabyTV, definitely check out their channels. They'll be linked in the description down below. Now, without any more hesitation, let's get into these creepy, black-eyed children's stories. One night, when my girlfriend was pregnant with my son, I drank some beer after work. I had 2 jobs, and at this job, I get a free beer after work. I drank a little bit more than I intended to. When I got back home, my girlfriend was mad because I had been gone all day, and then I came home drunk. I had worked both jobs on this day, so I had been gone all day, but I was not just out getting drunk. I drank for an hour and a half after my second job. Either way, she was late in her pregnancy, and she was mad. So instead of bothering her, I told her I would sleep in my van. I went outside and drove to a deserted parking lot a few miles away. This was in a huge apartment complex, but this part of it was being remodeled or something. One lone apartment building along the tree line with a secluded parking lot is where I decided to go to. Perfect to lay back the seat and sleep without being bothered. It was very cold outside, around 0 or maybe even below. So I had to get up every couple of hours to start the van for a half hour to get it warmed up inside the van. I had 2 or 3 big blankets and a couple of pillows. I went to sleep about midnight and turned the power off on my phone to save the 15% charge I had left in the battery. I had been up and down a couple of times through the night turning the car on and off. It was now about 5:30 a.m. I woke up to a cat scratching on a rusty spot in the back of my van. At first, I just lay there hoping it would go away. After a few minutes of this, I got aggravated, thinking I would have to get up and run the cat away from my car. I had my head covered over because it was so cold. I sat up looking for my shoes and freezing. As I was looking for my shoes to put them on, a child just stood up from where the scratching had been coming from. It looked like to be a 12-year-old girl. She was pale, with black hair. As soon as I made eye contact, I immediately looked down from my phone, thinking to myself, what's wrong with her face? I couldn't put my finger on it. It scared the crap out of me, and I jumped in the driver's seat to leave. This child did not move and was just staring at me. I saw some toys sitting in the seat beside me, and it was like she was putting thoughts in my head to make this seem normal. I started thinking maybe she is homeless and she wanted a toy. But every time a thought like that entered my mind, I dismissed it because it was below 0, and this girl was wearing a short-sleeved dress, just staring at me. I started the van and she was gone. As I pulled off, I saw her almost glowing at the tree line. I went home and told my girlfriend about it. Only in the retelling of my story did I figure out what was wrong with her face. She had no eyes. There were black voids for where her eyes should be. Like 2 small black holes for eyes. I knew about the black-eyed kids, but I didn't even think about it. I figured their eyes would jump out at you, but surprisingly, they don't. Even knowing about them, it took me until later to realize what she was. My girlfriend believed me straight off and said the way I had been acting lately, she wouldn't be surprised if demons tried to take me. It was a textbook case, except for one thing. The girl never spoke. She never asked for help. It was like she wanted to get me caught up in her stare, and I could feel thoughts being planted in my head from her. This to me was like a more intense encounter with the black-eyed kids. If I would have looked in her eyes again, I think she would have gotten me. It was a primal fear, and the more I think about it, the more I realize how close I came to death. Even having her controlling my thoughts and without recognizing the eyes right away, my fear took over, and I was scared to look at this child in the eyes. I could feel evil, and no matter how rational my mind tried to make it, my fear wouldn't allow it. It was only in the retelling of the story that I recognized the eyes being black and how skimpy her clothes really were for the weather. I tried to turn my phone on during the experience hoping to scare her away, but the battery was dead, even though I turned it off to save the small amount of charge I had left. As I powered it up, it powered itself down. I always thought a black-eyed kid experience would be cool, and I thought I would be brave, but that's not the case. This story is 100% true, and I don't think I'd be alive today if I looked her in the eyes again. It's like she was longing for a stare or a touch. I will tell you exactly where it was. It was Morgantown, West Virginia. I think I dodged a bullet, and that was the first and last time I slept in my car by choice. If anyone has any other thoughts, I would like to hear them.
Here's a story that recently happened to me. So, I was on spring break. I went to my dad's for the weekend. I had nothing to do late at night, so I like to walk the town. I know it can be dangerous, but I only had one friend there. So, on Sunday night, I was out on the town alone, leaving a little pub that I found on Mead Street probably around 1 in the morning. I was a little buzzed. Anyways, I wore a big black sweatshirt with dark jeans so that I could fend off any creepers. I hoped that would work. So I was walking back home in the dark with my phone out as a flashlight on the street. There are limited street lights. Although it's a pretty safe neighborhood, I figured nobody would be out. I was about 3 houses away from mine and looked over, and I saw 2 figures on the porch talking to a man who was shaking his head, refusing to open the screen door. I stopped cautiously at the end of the driveway, holding my phone, ready to help or call 911 or something. I really had no idea what was happening. I could only think that these 2 people were harassing the man, who kind of looked angry and maybe a little bit startled. So by my own means, I didn't think I was going to be able to help. I'm like 5'6" and 130 pounds. No fighting skills. I just thought that maybe my hoodie would make me look bigger than I did. So I just stood there watching, and I heard the 2 boys. The 2 kids, it sounded like. I stepped forward, looking over at this place kinda like involuntarily moving around. I don't know why I was. I was like halfway up the driveway, and the driveway was illuminated by the porch light, so he could see me and I could see him. I just stood there watching, and I just hear the voices saying, "Let us in. We need to call our mom. Please, you have to let us in." The strange thing was, there was no fear in their voices, just confidence. I just stood there, with chills running down my spine, unable to move. I tried to make sense of the situation. From a normal point of view, it looked like a grown man was refusing to help 2 children late at night. That said, the sense of dread that I felt at that moment, it just made no sense. Like, why is this guy so afraid of 2 little kids? So finally, I cleared my throat, thinking this man might help the kids. Or if the man needed help, I could still do something. So the man looked up, and the kids turned around. The man looked even more afraid at this point. He let out a yelp and slammed his door. It made me jump. The kids looked at me, and I looked straight at them, and every instinct I had was telling me to run for it. I was almost home. I was just a couple of houses away. I knew for a fact that my dad had left the door unlocked, so I could easily get away and get inside for safety. The kids started coming closer. I could see them better in the light, and I realized that they had no white in their eyes. It was just black. They slowly kept coming towards me. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't ask for help, but they just looked confused, and I was confused. I don't know why I didn't run, and I feel stupid for saying this because I wanted to, but I was compelled to stay. Suddenly, the tallest child was right in front of me. He was only a few inches shorter than me, and I glanced down at him, and in a startling moment, he stared back up at me, and he was like, "We have to use the phone." His voice was eloquent, I guess, would be the way I would describe it. He knew what he wanted, and for being alone with a stranger at 1 a.m., he did not seem at all afraid. I said, "I don't have one," and I kind of backed up because I didn't want to be that close to him, but I still couldn't run, even though I wanted to. Then he said, "Please, can we come in and use the phone? We need to get a hold of our mom." All of my instincts told me to lie because at this point, I don't think I could outrun them because they were right in front of me. They told me they needed to call their mom, and I said, "All right." My instincts were basically to lie, so I just said, "I don't have a phone, and I don't live on this street or anywhere near here. I'm sorry." I could tell my voice was kind of shaking just because I was so nervous. Like, I'm in the same boat as you guys. My ride ditched me, and I'm just walking until I find a phone too. I figured that maybe they would like to leave me alone if they believed that I had nothing. It was not until around this time, this point in the night, when I kind of remembered something. I had heard about the black-eyed kids, but I still kind of refused to believe it. I also refused to help these kids that were staring at me, standing there. They were like, "Please help us. We need to be let in." I was like, "I don't know, try another house or a payphone. I have change if you want it." And they were like, "No, just forget it." I was like, "I'm sorry. I wish I could help." They were just staring at me blankly. I know I look younger than I appear, especially with my big hoodie. So I thought maybe they thought I was only like a teenager, so they both kind of let me off. Then they both kind of nodded and stared, and I was like, "Okay, I have to go. Good luck." And I turned and walked in the direction that I came, making sure not to run. I just kept thinking, they can smell fear. They can smell fear. They can smell fear. So I walked. I did not reach for my phone. I just kept walking. And I must have walked like 3 or 4 blocks away from my street when I turned around and headed back. My heart was just pounding like crazy. I walked up to my street cautiously, just looking for the kids. I didn't see anything until I reached the house again. The porch light was still on, and the man was standing there with the door open, the screen door closed, holding a baseball bat and shaking. Our eyes met, and I looked at him, confused, until I realized that I looked like one of those kids. That's why he was so scared, because I was wearing a hoodie. I called out, "Did the kids leave?" And he was like, "The ones you were with earlier?" I kind of jumped back again, and I said, "The ones that were outside, that talked to me for a few minutes, and they wanted to call their mom, did they leave? Do you know if they left?" He was like, "I watched them walk away earlier. I don't know. I feel uneasy, and I won't let you in." I was like, "Okay, I have to go home. I don't need to be let in." So anyway, I don't go to my dad's that often, so it makes sense that he wouldn't recognize me in the dark. So I walked home, and I got there safe. I locked the door, and I sat in the kitchen for a long time. I was afraid to go into my room, because there was a huge window in my room. I was just really afraid that somebody might be looking back at me through the window. The scary part was, the next night, there was a knock at the door at like maybe 11 p.m. And I didn't answer because my father told me not to. He said it was late, and it was probably no one we wanted to talk to. I can't help but feel really uneasy about it, even to this day. I kept wondering if they had come back for me the next day.
I was home alone on Thanksgiving of 2015. It was evening time and I heard some knocking. Being in a festive and playful spirit, I opened the door without looking and automatically felt a deep sense of regret, sort of like a literal, oh no moment. I didn't know where it was coming from until I started actively trying to place what was wrong with the situation, and that's when I realized they didn't have any whites in their eyes. For a few seconds, I thought, isn't Halloween over? And was confused till the oldest boy made eye contact with me, and that's when I literally felt like I was staring death in the face. They wanted to come in, and the way they spoke made it seem like they knew what I was thinking, and they were actively mocking my helplessness. I slammed the door on them, turned on all my lights and started watching TV while they stood outside and would occasionally knock. I feel like I lost a good 6 hours of time because I don't even remember when I fell asleep or what I was last watching. I remember when I first sat down, Gabriel Iglesias was playing, but I don't remember anything else. When I woke up, it was 2 a.m. and the lights were all off and static was on the TV. I have Dish Network, and there were no power outages in my area, and I don't get static if the dish were to go out. I'd get a channel listed as HDMI and a black screen, or it would be the introduction screen where it would show 2 people talking about the features of Dish Network. Also, if the lights went out, they would come back on. I had to literally switch the lights on and off a few times to get them to work. No one was home. After that, I would occasionally see them outside, and every time it would be pin drop silence, and my lights would occasionally go out or something would lose power like my dish. One time my phone was at 63% and dropped to 1% in literally a minute. After a few months of being afraid of every knock, I decided to call an imam to bless the house. I also saged the house and bought a lot of different surahs, or psalms, to put in every room, including the bathrooms. Since then, the visits have stopped. However, a few months after that, I heard a blood-curdling scream and a banging on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw nothing. A few days ago, maybe 2 or so, my mom and I heard banging coming from the front door, and the same thing. No one was there. I don't know if it was them or something coming back, or just kids playing a prank, but I was scared.
I've heard stories of the black-eyed kids over recent years. Some of them are just downright creepy. I am sensitive. I do my best to be aware and focus on when and if I'm in danger, or if loved ones are in danger. My intuition goes on red alert. With that being said, I'd like to share something interesting. During the most recent New Year's Eve, my son, myself, and my fiance had a quiet night at home. We watched movies, made dinner, and my son went to bed fairly early since he was only 5 years old. No wild party. We were marathon watching Netflix while laughing and chatting in the master bedroom well after midnight, at which point there was a confident, yet creepy, solid knock on our front door. We live in the county and it's a bit remote. All of our neighbors are friendly enough, but they wouldn't have knocked that late as it would have been perceived as rude. Our Jeep was parked in the garage, so it wouldn't be related to a car having lights left on. I'm listing this because that has happened once. The keys to the Jeep in the house were securely hung in place. The fun time we were having quickly shifted to an odd feeling of confusion coupled with unusual terror. It was really odd. We aren't fearful people. We simultaneously checked our smartphones for anyone stopping by unannounced. Nothing except a few well-wishing friend texts due to it being New Year's Eve and all. I got up to stretch and my fiance made sure I wasn't about to answer the door. "Hell no," I said. We laughed uncomfortably. I joked with him saying, "Because you're going to," I teased. He scowled and then smiled, knowing full well he would have normally. Why were we so on edge? We both remarked how odd we felt about the knock in the late hour. In fact, we didn't budge from the master bedroom. Neither of us felt good about checking the door and figured whoever it was had the wrong house. 2 to 3 minutes passed. Then, another knock. We were getting agitated, and that strange feeling of terror was back, strong as ever. I've never felt that way about someone knocking on the door before, nor have I not felt safe to answer. It was really odd. I'll paint a clearer picture. We live in a good neighborhood. Our front porch light bulb needed to be replaced, so it was dark as hell out there. I thought it was really weird that someone would be standing out there in complete pitch black darkness for 3 minutes knocking like that. I mentioned this to my fiancé. The peephole would give us away if we stole a look since the lights were on throughout the house. We didn't dare check. Why? That senseless feeling of fear was disabling. It made it so two grown very capable of defending themselves were essentially cowering in fear after 2 knocks at the front door late at night. What gives? It took about a half hour, but I eventually felt a lot better. I no longer felt afraid and felt that whoever it was had left. I checked the front of the house through the kitchen window. No cars. No neighbors, no parties, just the calm sound of crickets. I proceeded to open the front door after listening to make absolutely certain no one would surprise me like a drunk ex-boyfriend passed out on the porch or something equally hilarious. Satisfied, I opened the front door. It was quiet. In fact, too quiet. No crickets. No sound at all. That's odd, I thought. I had a feeling instantly of being watched. From where? Who? What? I got chills and shut the door. I then armed the alarm system. I thought to myself, if they come back, we can call to report suspicious activity to the police. However, it then occurred to me that we wouldn't get through. It was New Year's Eve after all. Awesome, right? Even to me, it sounds like I'm overly paranoid and getting spooked for no reason. I would think the same thing if it not happened to me. When the second knock took place, for a split second I thought, oh snap, what if? Regarding the black-eyed kids stories I've read. Mostly though, I had this remarkable senseless fear we felt that tipped me off. My son slept through it. No, I didn't share this empathy with my fiancé at that moment. We were too terrified to make any noise. He's legitimately a skeptic and he doesn't know anything about the black-eyed kids, and I wasn't about to go into it at that time. He shared there was no way in hell he was answering the door, and I thought his reaction was odd, especially since he didn't know any black-eyed kid stories. During this ordeal, the doorbell wasn't used at all. What's strange is that the only light on the porch area would have been the illuminated button from the doorbell. Why wasn't the doorbell pushed? There was no porch light as it had been burnt out. It was at the height which needed a ladder to reach it. During the busy holidays, we had forgotten to get around replacing the bulb, yet it was on our list of to-do list. It was moved to the top of the list after this experience. It was super late at night also. I lived here for 8 years. As an example, the only time our door was ever knocked on super late at night was a friendly neighbor, letting us know months back that we had left the trunk door open once when we had unloaded groceries. He announced himself as he was knocking, saying who he was and why he was knocking before we reached the door. We were grateful for his concern that that was the only time it had happened. It's a good neighborhood. It's super important to express the immense fear I felt was paralyzing. I truly fear for anyone who has had the displeasure of experiencing the Becks. If that isn't what was on the porch, then it was something equally as terrible. It's also important to share this tidbit. I'm not a person who's normally fearful of much. Honestly, there is danger in just about everything. However, that doesn't stop me from daily adventures, and I'd rather enjoy life than live in fear. I'm a streetwise female who is always aware of her surroundings, as well as I'm a survivor of a home invasion too. When someone tried to rob me years prior, they were discovered in my kitchen when I was getting a quick glass of water before bed. We hadn't been home for even 2 minutes. I kept a Brita in the fridge to keep cold filtered water. When I opened the fridge, the light illuminated the kitchen well enough so I could see a man standing in my kitchen corner. As unnerving as that was, I wasn't afraid. Fight kicked in, reverse fight. All I did was look straight at the man and say, "Get out!" I walked towards him with purpose and he fled. I wasn't harmed. He ran from the house. My then boyfriend, back then it was someone I dated a few years ago, was amazed at my bravery. With this experience with the Becks that I've described, my instincts were going nuts. It was so terrifying that I wanted to share this with the community as a helpful way to warn others. If you have someone or something knocking late at night and it follows by a similar feeling of overwhelming dread, simply trust yourself. Don't go near the door. That dreadful feeling was so pronounced. Our instincts are there to keep us safe, so trust that feeling. It's there to keep y'all safe. Don't second guess yourself. We've since installed a security camera and restored the porch light. Your thoughts? Final thought. I have no idea what the Becks are. Whatever they may be, I definitely believe that they mean harm. My curiosity to initially look into the Becks stories is perhaps what helped save me from a full-blown encounter. I'm very thankful for that. Being informed is perhaps our best defense. Whatever was at the door, knocking in the pitch black in the middle of the night, was dangerous in its own right. I couldn't have answered the door, even if I had tried. Was it Becks? Only through a system of elimination can I take an educated guess. I would say yes. What's the alternative? I couldn't say. I won't even know for certain. I'm equally comforted to not having to deal with a Beck directly. From what I've read, their presence can influence people to do things they wouldn't normally, such as answer their door in the middle of the night when their instincts are screaming at them not to do that. I consider myself lucky to have a sixth sense to protect myself, but many people aren't equipped with that. That's basically why I've reported this experience. I want to help contact other people. I feel compelled to do so. It's my duty. I also meditate a lot. I try and keep my baseline vibration operating at a high level so I'm able to defend myself adequately. However, if anyone has further questions or wants to share something, I'm always up for that. Thank you for reading my story.
I am a die-hard agnostic skeptic with an open mind. I believe that anything is possible, but I want a logical and preferably scientific reason behind that anything. The last 10 years, however, have been insane. It started when I was a little kid. In my memories, I see kids between the ages of 5 and 11 with solid black eyes and smiles too big for their faces. I had a bad childhood, so I just figured they were added memories by an imaginative mind, because that's the answer that solidly fits my skeptical, scientific worldview. Last month, I started seeing a girl. She told me about her experiences with sleep paralysis and shadow people. I explained to her that it was a rational experience caused by being in a hypnagogic state. Then, she brought up the Cheshire Cat kids. Her recollections matched mine as a child, It was unnerving, to say the least, and she and I spent almost an hour discussing the most minute details of them. Our stories matched, so she does acid with her friends about 10 days ago and told me that she stepped outside. A group of 6 of them were waiting for her. They showed her scenes from my life that were my darkest. She described them to me accurately for her to have heard them from a secondhand source, which would be hard to do anyway, considering I don't like sharing such detailed information. They then told her that I was going to die soon and that they should stay away from me. This has put a monkey wrench in one of the most promising relationships of 25 years. Since that night, I have nightmares of them coming into my room, licking my forehead, and showing me the memories of my past like they were happening at that very moment. It was even complete with smells, sounds, sights, etc. I have written this off as part of my subconscious mind reacting with my long, dormant PTSD, but they got more and more vivid. While this is happening, she has been distancing herself from me more and more. Last night is the weirdest part of the tale, however. I was driving down a winding country road to calm myself, and a pair of headlights fly from behind me on the bend and runs me off the road, almost into a tree. When I looked, however, there was no car and the headlights extinguished after passing me. I'm chalking this up to anxiety, starting delusions, and possible schizophrenia, but I cannot explain how she knew what she did and why all of this is suddenly happening. Any advice is very appreciated. Thanks for listening to these creepy black-eyed kid stories. I don't know about you, but if they knock on my door, I'm definitely not answering. If you like these stories, please hit that like button, as it helps me out a ton. If you're new to the channel, why not subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss a new video? I upload them almost every single day on all things natural and supernatural. Much thanks to my friend Kenny Dreadful from Dezombified and Zach Baby TV who helped me read these stories today. They really helped me out a ton, so please show them some love and check out their channels. You can find them in the description down below. If you have a story you would like to share, whether it's with black-eyed kids or something completely different, be sure to submit it at swampdweller.net or the email you can find in the description down below. I would love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp. It's stories like yours that keep this channel going. Without further ado, we have made it to the end, and I can't thank you enough for all the support you give the swamp. I'll see you guys soon with another creepy video.